The reason we love college football is because of days like today. Incredible games starting in the early window with Ole Miss and Kentucky to Minnesota, Michigan. You get the afternoon games with Colorado, UCF, good Auburn, Oklahoma game that goes down to the wire. Then you get the night game between Georgia and Alabama, the headliner. And then even some fun games late with Arizona and Utah finishing in an upset. This is why we love college football. And today we're going to be talking about the winners and losers of the week. If you guys are new around here, we've done this every week, and it's just a series where we talk about some of the top draft prospects, some of the teams, kind of where they're going up or down. We go over my Heisman race as well as my new and updated top 25. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Who do you guys think really impressed you this week? But without further ado, we're going to get right into it, starting with who I think was the biggest winner of the week. That's going to be Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. Milroe came into the year as my QB6, I want to say, and you could see the upside last year. There was no doubt about it. After he got benched after the ugly performance against Texas last year, he has really turned it around, and tonight was kind of the epitome of that. Coming into a massive game against Georgia, where he played absolutely incredible, particularly in the first half, winning with both his arms, his legs. I mean, he had 117 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, had a tightrope rush for one of his touchdowns. But I think the thing that's going to really stick out to me is the accuracy. Coming into today, my big complaint with Jalen Milroe is he does a really good job of hitting the deep ball. Like, he's actually a really good deep ball thrower. Can he be more consistent in the short to intermediate? Take what the defense is giving him. And he was fantastic today, dumping it off to CJ Dupree, making plays happen in the short to intermediate. The screen game, they found a ton of creative ways to get the ball out of his hands. And he was taking what the Georgia defense was giving him. And I was super impressed with what we saw from him today. He has jumped up into that top 3 tier of quarterbacks. I don't think there's any question about it right now. I think right now it's between Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, and Jalen Milroe for that top quarterback spot. And it's going to make the rest of the season very, very interesting. I thought Milroe was absolutely incredible tonight. We knew the athletic upside was there, and we knew he had the tools to get there, but you're starting to see those tools pay off. And just got to give a big shout out to Kalen DeBoer. He's 33-3 against Power 4 opponents. Like, this guy just doesn't lose games. He's undefeated against Sark. He's undefeated against Kirby Smart now is in that mix. I mean, he's an unbelievable coach, and he's got this Alabama team exceeding my expectations and pulling off an incredible win. The next loser we got to talk about is the quarterback on the other side of this game, and it is Carson Beck. Now, what I do want to say about Carson Beck, and I know I saw this dialogue going on around Twitter. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, is Carson Beck just not going to be a first-round pick? I thought that argument was stupid. He had some bad moments tonight. He did. The first half was brutal in this game. I want to say he started the game 5 for 15, had a couple of really ugly interceptions, including the last play of the game, but that is why he dropped today. It was the interceptions. It was just uncharacteristic of Carson Beck. Had never had a collegiate game with multiple interceptions. He had 3 today. But let's just not forget that second half happened. He was absolutely phenomenal in the fourth quarter of this game. He caught fire, single-handedly, honestly, brought Georgia back in this game, started connecting, and you started to see why we had him as QB1 coming into the year. He's one of the best decision makers in this entire draft class. He's really accurate with the football. He's got good size. He's got really good arm talent. I thought Arian Smith was terrible. There were multiple just dimes from Carson Beck that were just right out of the hands of Arian Smith. And he made some really, really impressive plays in this game. But we're going to talk about the issues. And he really struggled under pressure tonight. He kind of collapsed in that area. And the accuracy was a little bit up and down, 27 for 50. There was some good, there was some bad, but Carson Beck did drop pretty significantly for me. He went from my QB1 to my QB4 today. I just think the rest of this quarterback class has been kind of overachieving right now. And after what we saw against Kentucky and then what we saw today, I do think there are some concerns with Carson Beck. And he is still a first round quarterback, though. I think he does a lot of things that you really love. He's a really smart quarterback. He's beaten up really good opponents. I mean, the only team he's lost to is Alabama up to this point. And so I'm not worried about him, but it is definitely a performance that we got to take some note of. Another winner for me, let's talk about the Colorado Buffaloes. Now, I know some of you guys around the channel might think I'm a Colorado homer. I mean, I grew up in Colorado. I spent 12 years in Colorado. I've got a special connection to Colorado in my heart, even though I'm a Tennessee fan. I always root for Colorado, and I don't think we've given them enough praise over the last 3 weeks. We talked about the thrilling game-winning Hail Mary a little bit last week. We didn't really talk about the game against Colorado State where they were dominant in that one. And then the game today against UCF, I talked about it, and I should have went with my gut on this one. I talked about it in my picks and predictions episode. I was like, Colorado's 14.5-point underdogs. That is the stupidest line I have ever seen. Colorado's at least going to keep this game close. And they blew UCF out of the water. They went cross country to humid Florida. And this Colorado team is different. And I know a lot of people want to hate on Dion, want to hate on Shedeur Sanders. I get it. But Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders is the best 1-2 combo in all of college football. And what this team is doing right now, we got to take note of. I think they're a genuine threat in the Big 12 right now. They're playing just as good as football as anyone. You look at Oklahoma State, I don't see them as a threat. Arizona, they got a win today. That seems like a team that's on the rise, but Utah's losing. They seem to be the clear favorite. Not anymore. I mean, right now, if I had to bet on who the favorite is in the Big 12, I'd say Iowa State. But Colorado is playing incredible, and we know the offense is high scoring. Will Shepherd had an incredible game. LeJontay Wester has been very good for them. But the most impressive part to me has been the defense, and it's the way the defensive line has been playing. We saw it in that first game against North Dakota State, and we saw it in the second game against Nebraska. They couldn't stop the run. The last 3 games, this is a team that has done a really good job of defending the run. UCF had a game plan, and they wanted to run the ball down Colorado's throat. They weren't able to. This Colorado team has already matched their win total from last year. I mean, and you look at some of the games on their schedule still. You got Cincinnati, you've got Texas Tech. I think this team can get to 8 wins. I think there are some really winnable games on their schedule. If their defense can keep playing like this, and we know that the offense is going to make plays, the establishment of the run game has been huge because they're able to build off of play action and really catch defenders in a loop. So I've been really impressed with how Colorado's played the last 3 weeks, and I think we got to start taking some notes. And I think they're a team that's going to get some top 25 votes. Put out a poll on my Twitter today at JWAC Reactions, and a lot of people think Colorado should be ranked. We'll see towards my top 25 if I had them there, but I think Colorado's a big winner. Then we got to talk about Ole Miss, and I know this should have been the opening loser for the day. Come in, big favorites against a Kentucky team who I didn't have any belief in. I thought Kentucky was a bad team, in all honesty, and I kind of still hold that same sentiment. I don't think Kentucky's a great football team. What I will say, I think their defense was incredible. We'll get to that in a little bit, but Ole Miss, really just weird game plan. I mean, the first half kept getting into trouble with penalties and kind of giving Kentucky more and more chances to score, which Kentucky capitalized on. But it was down the stretch, game management from Lane Kiffin, decision-making from Jackson Dart that were just really questionable. The defense really shut them down, and there were some really good performances for Ole Miss. I thought their defense was actually phenomenal today. Princely Umanmielen, who we did a video on this morning, he was absolutely phenomenal today. Jared Ivey, he was really good. Chris Paul had some good plays, but the secondary really let them down. I thought Trey Amos was a bit of a disappointment today, and they lost to an unranked SEC opponent, and that really hurts them. Even though I think they played a good game, they had a chance to win. they have to be a team that I had as number 3 in the country. I've been really impressed with how they played on both sides of the football. They are a loser for me this week. They still are a top 10 team. Let's get that out of the way. Not really worried about them dropping a ton, but it's a game that I think they should have had and they should have won, and they just weren't able to capitalize. And it leaves you a little bit concerned when they play some of these tougher SEC matchups. That was a game that should have been a gimme on their schedule, and they weren't able to capitalize. And I think they're a loser because of it. Another winner of the week for me, it's going to be running back DJ Giddens. Kansas State came into the day as a team that I picked to win, but I really didn't have much faith in it. They actually dominated the game today, and it was by the rushing attack. We know that Dylan Edwards and DJ Giddens was one of the best 1-2 running back combos in college football, and Avery Johnson's a really good rushing threat as a quarterback, but DJ Giddens had himself a day today against an Oklahoma State defense that just couldn't stop anything. 15 carries for 187 yards, including a 55-yard touchdown. This running back class is absolutely loaded. Giddens is a player that I do really like. I think he's right outside my top 10 running backs in the class. And my big concern with him on the year was the big plays. It felt like he had some really good vision, some really good ability to bounce it to the outside, but he didn't feel like he was going to break anything away and be this big play guy at the next level. And he showed me a little bit of that today. The 187 yards, the 55-yard rushing touchdown, really good stuff from a back that I did have some concerns about. So really like what Giddens showed, and a running back class that just the names that we could continue to add to this week after week. Seems like we're getting another incredible running back performance every single week, and Giddens just gets to add his name to that list as one of these guys that's probably going to be an impact player at the NFL who might get taken in the 4th or 5th round because this running back class is so loaded. Kyle Monangai also had a great day, but I thought Giddens was one of the standout players of the week. Another loser for me, it's got to be the officiating this week, and we know which 2 games I'm talking about. BS is pretty perfect. There were 2 brutal calls. I know we'll talk about the Virginia Tech Miami game first. I think that call was right, personally. I thought it was right when I watched it. It didn't look like he had full control going to the ground. That's a Virginia Tech team that I had a lot of high hopes for. The problem was you called it a touchdown on the field, and there wasn't really enough evidence to overturn it. No matter how slowly you break that down, there really wasn't enough to overturn it. And I thought it was a dumb decision by the officials to overturn that call. A lot of people thinking, well, the ACC's got nothing else. They're trying to keep Miami alive. I don't think that. I mean, it felt a lot like the Fail Mary from Green Bay, Seattle a few years ago. I thought the officiating was rough in that game. But the other one that I think was way worse was the Minnesota-Michigan game. This is a game that I have my eyes on because Michigan got out to a huge lead in this game. Looked like they were going to blow out Minnesota. And the Minnesota went up tempo in the second half, had an incredible touchdown to Daniel Jackson, who made an incredible acrobatic catch in the end zone. They score, make it a 3-point game, onside kick that's recovered by Minnesota that the officials call offside. And it was a terrible call. You go back and watch the highlights. He most definitely was not offsides on that play. And it's just situations like this that make football really tough sometimes because it's the officials making costly decisions like that ruin games. Those are 2 outcomes that would have changed if the officials, A, stuck with the call or went with the right call. And I know it's hard in the moment. You can't challenge everything, but just some bad officiating across the college football landscape this week that I think we need to talk about because those could definitely impact some playoff hopes because if Michigan loses that game, that desperately hurts their case. And if Miami loses that game, we're looking at that team a little bit differently this week. So I thought the officials were a little bit rough in 2 of the best games of the week. Another winner for me is wide receiver Dane Key. There were a ton of players I could have picked off this Kentucky team. I thought Deion Walker was absolutely phenomenal today. You saw J.J. Weaver making plays. Jamon Dumas Johnson. JQ Hardaway, shout out to him really quick. Transfer from Cincinnati. Maxwell Hairston's down in this game. He steps up in a huge way for the secondary. Octavius Oxendine, a player that I didn't even have on my radar, he was flying off the defensive line, but Barium Brown had a big play. I mean, there were so many really good performances from this Kentucky team. But I thought Dane Key was the most impressive. Now, coming into the year, I thought Dane Key wasn't a great receiver, didn't feel very athletic, didn't feel like a great route runner, separator. But what I saw today was something I hadn't really seen. They kind of used him how Kansas City uses Rashee Rice. And they're like, you know what? Just get him the football and he'll make plays happen after the catch. And that's kind of what he did. They got him the ball in space. He made some plays. He found soft spots in zone. And he was Brock Vandegrift's best friend today. Just getting open. And he really, they don't win this game without Dane Key and his heroics and just continuing to extend drives. 8 receptions, 105 yards, a touchdown. One of the big standout performances of the week for me. I was really impressed. I thought Dane Key was a big winner from the week. And that's something that excites you about Kentucky moving forward. Another loser for me, it's Oklahoma State. I don't even want to spend too much time on this. It's back-to-back weeks, but I think this Oklahoma State team is done. I think their Big 12 chances are over. Back-to-back losses against Utah, Kansas State. You got just – I think the offense is one of the most boring offenses to watch in the league. Ollie Gordon, I mean, you can make a case he's fallen down into like third-round consideration right now. This is a guy that we were mocking in the first round. I never really got with the hype. He was my RB3 coming into the year, which everyone thought was low. He's really had a down season. Alan Bowman should get benched. He's looked terrible. And Mike Gundy might not be the head coach here next year. The offensive line looks terrible. They can't run block. They're not doing anything, and the pressure's everywhere. This is an Oklahoma State team that I think is really tough. And there's a team, like we said, had some big expectations coming into the year, weren't able to capitalize, and I think they're a loser for the second straight week. Another winner for me, shout out to Mario Williams, wide receiver at Tulane. Started his career at Oklahoma, transferred to USC, played with Caleb Williams, kind of got phased out of that lineup last year, entered the transfer portal and went to Tulane, and everyone kind of wrote him off and was like, okay, we're not going to be hearing much from him. But he's been playing really solid for the Green Wave as one of their receiving weapons and had a really good game, particularly in the first half where he had 4 receptions, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's a really good, solid slot receiver. Twitchy, a little bit undersized, but he's got good speed. He's got solid hands across the middle. And he showcased that today. Had a couple of big plays for Tulane. And I was pretty impressed with what we saw from him. He's a player that I still think would go towards the back end of day 3, but a really solid performance and one that could definitely keep him on teams' radars. I thought he had a good game, and he was a big winner of the week for me. Another loser has got to be Utah. This is a tough loss for them against a Arizona team that had really struggled coming into the week. Struggled offensively. Defensively, they had some issues. Tacario Davis had himself a really, really good day, 4 pass deflections. It's good to see him back on track. But Utah had a chance, and they should have won this game, in all honesty. Better on paper, and they just weren't able to capitalize. Backup quarterback in there. And it's a Utah team that we talked about it. I think you kind of need to be – they were the favorites in the Big 12, and now they haven't looked amazing. The second half of that Oklahoma State game, a bit concerning to me. They weren't able to really capitalize there, and then they didn't really come out firing today against a inferior Arizona team. So definitely something to monitor with Utah moving forward. I think they are a loser of the week. I think they've got to be. It's a game they should have had. It should have been one of the easier ones on their schedule, and they weren't able to capitalize. So they did drop a little bit in my rankings. Another winner for me, Donovan Izuruaku. We're just going to call him Donovan here. I know I butchered the name. You guys are going to make fun of me all you want. Izuraku. We're just going to go with that. He was fantastic. Now, he popped off in the Florida State opener where he was everywhere in that game. 14 total tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. Boston College won this game by 1 point with their backup quarterback in there. Donovan is a big part of the reason why they won this game. Rushing the passer, this guy's got freakish size, good quickness off the edge, and he's an underappreciated player. I was really impressed with what we saw from him against Florida State. And against a Western Kentucky team that had all their starters, is a game that they had the lead for most of it. Donovan just kind of took over, and he's another one of these edge rushers that might sneak into like the end of day two. Really good athlete, and I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen from him. I haven't done a full film evaluation on him. He might be a guy I look into later on this week, but really like what I've seen from him. He's a big winner of the week. Another loser for me, it's Oklahoma. I don't see how you could feel great about that win if you're an Oklahoma fan. Auburn, one of the worst teams in the SEC, had the lead on them the entire game. They changed quarterbacks. It was a fine move. Michael Hawkins had a good game. I don't know. I'm still trying to get that name right. I think it's Hawkins. He had a solid game early. The offense is just so stagnant for Oklahoma, and they win because their defense. They play really tough defense, but their offense has got to get it clicking because it's tough to watch this Oklahoma team week in and week out. And it's a game, like I said, they should have had in the bag, and it just didn't really feel like they really cared or came to play. So they were another loser for me. And then another, winner of the week we could talk about is Travis Hunter as we get into the Heisman race. A couple of changes here in the Heisman race. I think Travis Hunter is the Heisman favorite right now. I mean, the dude's unbelievable. Plays every single snap, every single game for this team, both sides of the ball. Defensively, he's just doing unbelievable things. Forced fumble last week, interception this week, making goal line stands. This guy is the best player in college football, hands down. I've been blown away. Now, the 2 through 5 is interesting. Ashton Jeanty probably could have moved up this week. I struggle with Jeanty because he is a group of 5 player, but he has got to be in the mix. Another 4 touchdown, 260-yard game from this guy. I mean, he's at number 5, but this dude's unbelievable. Jalen Milroe, we talked about how incredible of a performance he had. Cam Ward, though, he drops from number 1 to 3 while also simultaneously raising to my QB1. Not a great game. Sloppy decision-making from him, turning the ball over. Not really a statement win, but he showed up in the clutch for Miami. I think mostly I'm more impressed with the other 2 performances, but I think Cam Ward, spoiler alert, he is my QB1 now. And then Miller Moss started off slow against Wisconsin, really got it going, and he stays at number 4. The same 5 guys are in the Heisman mix for me. Nussmeier, you could put in that mix as well. That 4th spot is just really difficult. Because I think Jeanty, Ward, Milroe, Hunter all should be there. Dylan Gabriel maybe could get in there, but I still think I need to see a little bit more from Oregon before I crown him. Getting into the top 25, though, we do have 2 teams that dropped out. Nebraska, I had them hanging on at 25. They did win, but I was more impressed with a couple of performances that weren't ranked that jumped them, and they didn't really have the greatest of games. Then UCF just gets blown out by Colorado. Probably shouldn't have had them ranked last week anyways. We take a look at the updated top 25, and there is some movement. We'll talk about it. So Texas stays at number 1. Really good statement win against Mississippi State. Finished that one off, and good win from them. Ohio State, same thing, beat Michigan State. Alabama jumps from number 4 to number 3. Statement win against Georgia. The offense played great. Defense forced pressure. You feel great about that. Tennessee jumps from number 7 to number 4. Despite not playing, I think they were kind of underappreciated in my rankings. The way this defense has played this year, the way the offense has looked, I think they deserve to be in that top 4. Miami stays the same despite a scare there late. And Georgia stays the same. I know people are going to say I should have had them lower. I had them lower than most people anyways. I had them at number 6 coming into the week. With the way they played in the second half, I'm not worried about Georgia. They're still a top 10 team to me. Ole Miss drops from number 3 to number 7 after a bad loss to an unranked Kentucky team. Penn State stays the same. Oregon jumps up from number 10 to number 9 after a good win against UCLA. Finally seems like that team is starting to find its identity and win more games. Clemson, though, this is a big jump for me. If you guys know, I've been lower on Clemson pretty much all year. I've been really impressed with the way this team has turned their season around since week 1. Clemson is in my top 10. I've got them at number 10. Missouri didn't play today. Michigan stays the same despite the officials bailing them out against Minnesota. USC stays the same after a good win against Wisconsin. And then Utah, they are dropping from number 9 to number 14 after a loss to Arizona. LSU stays the same. Iowa State, first 4-0 start since 2018. I think Iowa State's a really good football team. They're playing great football. And you look at the Big 12, you got Utah, Iowa State, Kansas State, who jumps up from number 20 to number 17. I thought they were, or it's number 16, excuse me. Nope, my math's wrong. It's 17. I was really impressed with their running attack today. They jump up. Notre Dame jumps up from 19 to 18 after a win against Louisville. Indiana, maybe the most underappreciated team in the country. I got them at 19. This offense looks very good. Elijah Surratt had an awesome game. Curtis Rourke, I mean, he's jumping up my board. He's looking really sharp for Indiana. And then BYU, I talked about it. I should have had them ranked last week. Got off to a red-hot start against Baylor. Started to taper off a little bit late, but they are my number 20 team right now. Oklahoma stays the same despite a game that they probably should have lost. UNLV, I know everyone thinks I should have Boise State ranked. Maybe you can put them at 25th. UNLV is a good football team that I don't think we're really talking about. Matthew Sluka, that whole situation seems to have honestly lit a switch in UNLV. They looked better with their backup quarterback. Defense played great. Jalen Catalon, Jackson Woodard. This defense looks phenomenal. UNLV, I've got it at number 22. Illinois drops from number 18 to number 23, despite playing Penn State pretty well in this game. I still think they are a ranked team. A&M stays the same after a win against Arkansas, and then Louisville hangs on to stay at my number 25 spot. But that is my new and updated top 25. Would love to hear your thoughts, who you guys have in your top 25. Leave a like, subscribe if you are new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.